final panel of the day, and this is around the evolution of enterprise digitization of our government. And it's going to be a fascinating discussion about the evolution of enterprise digitization. We have two exceptional moderators guiding us through the conversation. Trong Bui, he is also on the board with me of AACC and the president and CEO of the Gori. And Anil Sharma, also on the board of AACC. He's the CEO of 22nd Century Technologies Incorporated. And they're going to be joined by Don Bittner. He's the CTO at the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Kappa Mangala, Director of Business Application Services at the U.S. Department of Labor, and Kenneth Harrison, CIO at the Division of Information Technology with the Inspector General's Office. Thank you all so much for being with us today. Let's give them a round of applause.
All right, I will start. Thank you, guys, and thank you our esteemed panelists, Don, Ken, and Mangla. So I will give you a brief introduction of our panelists, and we'll go from there. Hear their vision, hear what great things federal government is doing it, and they are representing that here. So Don is CTO of USDA. As per his role, he is responsible to set up the technology vision for USDA. That includes bringing innovation, optimization, efficiencies, all that is part of Don's role. Prior to USDA, he was handling the DoD AI, so we all get excited about hearing AI. I can say that Don was doing the AI DoD at DoD before, much before you all now getting excited. So today will be the time to hear from Don about the AI. John, you want to tell Ken?
All right. So I know Ken for a very long time. Ken, I work with Ken at Census Bureau. Ken run the telecommunication division within the Census Bureau throughout 2010, 2020. That recently December 2020. So that's how I met Ken. Ken is move on from Census to a new thing, better thing. Ken now is CIO at the OIG under Department of Labor. So I get Ken here to join the panel to talk to you guys today.
And our third is Mangla. She is the Director of Business Applications at DOL. Under that, 64 different 24 different DOL departments and handling all the mission critical business applications. Under his role, she has been helping DOL to innovate, modernize these applications, taking to the newer technologies, bringing innovation, bringing efficiency. We all know federal government on the loan budget, always looking to improve the efficiencies, and that's what Mangla's role is. And I can tell that both Mangla and Don, they are the eyes and ears, the right hand of the CIOs, Gary and Gundi. So thank you. So we'll start with asking, of course, today's topic was twofold, digitization and digitalization. So we'll start, let's start with digitalization. As part of your role as a CTO, how do you incubate innovation in a federal agency?
Thanks, Anil. Thanks, everyone, for having me here. Get to tell a story over the last several years. So the nice thing about coming to USDA is I came from DoD, where digital modernization was a huge endeavor, still a huge endeavor in USDA. And what I found going between the two agencies is the similar problems. Innovation being front and center in DoD, man, I can't tell you how many generals I've talked to who said, hey, we want to buy innovation, right? I wish we could get innovation in a box or something along those lines. But, what it really boils down to is, really this, at least for so really incubating innovation, right? What we want to do, there's a lot of ways to look at innovation. You go to the platform ops guys and say, hey, I have a problem, can you fix it? A lot of times it's our IT shops may not have the skill sets for the new tech that's coming in, or it's further up on the stack that we just haven't, gotten to yet. But you still have problems that you're trying to explore or figure out whether or not these technologies can happen. So that's, the center thrust of a lot of what I've been doing is making sure we can set the conditions to bring in new technologies and know how they're going to apply across our business architecture, our mission architectures. And then the last thing is, how do we set the guide rails? So, tech policy, I haven't really, I have to be careful because I don't have really any policy mandate ability, but there's a lot of policy out there that's already getting us down that road. What I can offer is some guidance on the best practices on bringing innovation and where we are trying to go to bear. So, I'll give you a for instance, trying to make sure we're putting all our stuff all our IP into repositories, right? We have a lot of software development happening. We have a lot of configuration as code that's out there. Let's at least get it into something that the government knows it's there. Eventually, I'd like to get to what it is and how well it's coded, but baby steps. So, in incubating digital modernization, that's got to be the forefront. I mean, that's got to be where we want to end up, being able to rapidly respond to user requirements and capabilities. When we can't, can we bring the right technologies to bear very quickly? And then the last leg is, all right, how does it serve the greater enterprise 2-3 years down the road?
Mangala, you want to add to that?
Sure. Is the mic working?
Yeah.
All right. First, let me just say that 25 years of my career is the journey of digitization, right? In a way, being an IT person, you have gone through the various evolutions of IT. And, talking about digitization or digitalization, where we are today is more about, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So where we are today is more about trying to look at digital experience, right? That's the key, and some of you may be aware that OMB released guidance on digital experience. Some of you may have heard customer experience, and I'm sure you heard that, right? So where our head is with digitization is really digital experience, right? Let me take it one step back a little bit, and I want to touch on innovation. Don and I were talking earlier and how he is doing innovation in his agency. The challenges are very similar, the approaches are very similar. From my vantage point, where I have the responsibility to manage mission systems for 24 agencies, these are large agencies, right? So over 500 systems, so the engines have to keep running. Yet you have to realize that there is innovation happening just as fast, even faster sometimes. And then when is it the point that you stop and pause and take advantage of innovation, and then you keep running again, right? And it directly conflicts with the resources every single time. Once you uncover all the issues and then get down to the bottom of this, what you realize is that you have limited resources and you have to make choices, right? Department of Labor, I want to touch a little bit on what DOL does. I think it provides a backdrop of when I talk about mission applications, what are we dealing with, right? In my 25 years of career, mostly in private sector organizations like you all are, I think DOL is my first federal engagement. And I thought I would be at DOL for 2 years and move on. And here I am after 14 years, right? And the reason I think if I look back and say what held me back at the department is the mission, right? The systems, when I talk about systems, we're talking about helping military personnel transition to civilian lives, right? We're talking about ensuring mines are safe, right? We're talking about protecting your 401k. We're talking about paying workers' comp. Someone needs that check to be mailed in the right time, otherwise lives depend on it, right? Bureau of Labor Statistics, where I spent 12 years, everything we do fluctuates our whole lives, whether we realize it or not, right? Enforcing labor standards, both here and internationally, providing grants to combat human trafficking. I am an immigrant, and I did not realize that my first stop was Department of Labor, right? So when you guys as employers apply for labor certification, the foreign labor certification gateway system that my staff manages now, I think this is just going up. I'll extend you to next time. So, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So, we process labor certification, Department of Labor processes labor certification. Talking about digitization, Gandeep still has a frame of a blue paper in his office even today. And he wears that very proudly because the digital certifications, the labor certifications, the paper used to be shipped to USCIS and Department of State, right? Thousands and thousands of paper certificates used to go. The system now puts the data into a data hub. Some of our partners who worked on it know what I'm talking about. And then USCIS instantly gets it the moment we finish it, right? 2 years ago, we went to TMF board for funding to modernize the permanent visa system. Immigrants again, green card processing, you have to process the labor certification again. If you are an employer, we actually update our external filing system recently where you don't have to re-enter the data, right? Just think of the time you're saving. By our projections, you are saving close to $1.5 million in time, attorney time, in re-entering the data for every certification that you're filing, right? Next year, we are improving our internal processing through digitization, where it used to take us, it still takes us as of this moment about 5 to 6 months to actually get through that labor certification process in case of permanent visa, right? Because keep in mind, you do that already with the temporary visa, H1, H2A, H2B, right? We are anticipating taking off 45 days of processing time. And the development is done. Of course, we want to test it and we want to make sure that it is all good. And we are expecting that value to be realized next year. So I just want to give a backdrop of when I talk about mission systems. These are the systems that kept me at department for as long as I've been here. And so every single day when we think of IT, to me the value is about how it's changing the lives for people, right? A 45-day reduction in a labor certification, I think immigrants can appreciate that, right? And then, we immediately send it, USCIS, Department of State, you have access to our data, it's a common data hub. So it's a little bit of digital experience is what we are aiming at. If you look at the guidance, we talk about not just with the systems, but also the content. We want to make sure that the government websites and services, we are using plain language so that it's understandable. We're catering to accessibility, whether it's 508 or providing multiple languages there. So to me, I think digitization or digitalization moved much far from an IT thing to really changing lives for people, right? I want to lastly touch on innovation and emerging tech. And I love saying it this way. Every tech was emerging tech at some point in time. Then it's tech. After that it's just tech, right? So the key is how do you go from emerging tech to tech? And to me, that's the transition we're trying to achieve. Because tech is constantly changing. A version of tech is always becoming emerging tech. A version of emerging tech is always coming back to being tech. And I think the difference is that we need to understand emerging tech, understand its fit for use, right? And understand what risks it presents, and also what opportunities it brings, right? And then it should just be a tech that's available for mission systems, right? That's kind of how we approach, and I think we are focusing a whole lot on digital experience. We have been focusing on that, but also because OMB also put guidelines out there because there is a common consensus across government that we really want to make lives of Americans easier, and we want to make our websites more accessible, more friendly, and work towards improving your experience rather than just changing the IT behind the scenes, right?
Okay.
I'm up. Sorry.
You want to add on digitalization?
I believe I haven't been at DOL as long as she has, but and I'm a network guy at heart, so what I hear is people, when we want to receive data, I think the government does 3 things, right? Every government agency does 3 things. We collect, process, and disseminate data, right? And we want to make the lives of American people efficient. So, since I'm a network guy, I have to build a scalable network to be able to collect that data, process it, and for us to disseminate it. And one of the biggest things out of this, and no one glassed over on this, was trust. You trust. Some folks, you'll put your data on Facebook and Instagram quickly, right? And LinkedIn and those places. But you do not trust that the government will handle your data securely. So from my position is, we have to secure that data. And we have to be ahead of it, right? We can't be behind. So it can't be, we're doing yesterday's things trying to protect today's innovation. We got to be way ahead of that. So, that's my position on a lot of, as we talk digitization.
Great. Thank you, Ken. Great views. In Mangla touched something about taking from digitalization to digitization, saving 45 days, and that saving 45 days in a Asian American Chamber of Commerce event where a lot of us are first generation immigrants and dependent on those visas and all, so at some part of our life, so that's really important. Taking that path from digitization, what is your view on, of course, the OMB guidelines on digitization? We still, although we are reaching to Gen AI, but still, governments still use a lot of papers. You may have heard recently, Treasury Secretary announced paperless IRS, which is the biggest. And similarly, what is USD and DOL view on going to the paperless or on the digitization?
Yeah, so I get to look a little bit further ahead on digitization, right? So first the problem is the physical to digital, which is, I think it's still problematic trying to get massive warehouses full of data. I think we're all struggling with the records management challenges and making sure that we're capturing the things that we need to archive, keep on hand for 7+ years, and then pay the bills as they come due to make sure that we keep those records up to date. The thing that I think USDA is kind of, we're looking ahead in terms of, okay, we've got to digitize. I think we all remember the Paperless Reduction Act of, I couldn't quote you the year, but 20+ years ago. Yet we have more paperwork than ever. How is that even possible? Well, I'll tell you, we didn't look at, and Mangala pointed to it very, very well, is we didn't really take a concerted approach on what do we want to transform our businesses into. And that's what you see from these OMB directives. Hey, if you're going to use Gen AI, you have to have the same level of assurance, trust, and integrity that we only get one shot at this, guys. Like once you lose the public's trust, you're now kind of you're in a hole you may never climb out of in a given person's career. So how do we do that in a very methodical way? So OMB is providing that in terms of AI guidance. They're also looking at it from the DEIA perspective, the diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. So it's now mandating, and I'll say it as a tech guy, mandating the things that we should have been doing all along, right? We should have been doing these things intrinsically. 508 compliance should have been intrinsic. It should not be a checkbox on a Mother May I form internally. It needs to be part of our life cycle system development. And I think that's where USDA is really getting its arms around. We're looking at one of our major missionaries, Food Nutrition Service. They stood up an innovation hub focused on the DEI capabilities and how we can apply AI to help that customer experience get over the hump of making sure that SNAP and WIC programs can actually deliver to a broader or an equitable audience. So And I said, you mentioned DoD. One of the things that I used to joke about a lot in DoD is if you want a use case, come to DoD because we have every use case under the sun. And then I got to USDA and I realized, you know what, there's really one use case DoD does not have, and that is directly serving the public. And that really flipped my thinking on customer experience. One of the first things I've asked, where's our journey maps? Have we sat down as a public user, given certain DEIA, thought processes and what they experience? Is it easy for somebody who has ESL, English as a second language, to apply for a farm loan? I mean, these are the type of things that I get excited about because it's like, okay, now we're getting into better streamlined government. The flip side of it, and a secondary effect I think we're actually starting to realize is if you approach this in an enterprise way, it's applicable not just to one agency or center within USDA or within the US government, because the question I'm constantly asking is, all right, I've heard that use case before. Have we talked to Department of Labor? What did they do? What solutions did they come up with? What processes do we look at? Another thing is, when we talk about innovation, we're now thinking about these equity pieces and inclusion pieces and diversity pieces and accessibility pieces up front. We've brought generative AI use cases up into our governance bodies so our technology seniors can get visibility of how we're applying generative AI broadly in the department. Now we focus on the governance aspect by going out and doing 1,000 pilots. Not to say we don't have pilots out there, but it does bring to bear what we're kind of trying to think ahead a little bit. So I think we're well positioned to kind of do both the innovation side and the new focus on customer and I'll say employee experience from both sides.
Yeah. So Mangala, don't tell three part, digitization and the next even AI, Gen AI. So you want to
Let's see if technology works. It did. My experience is good today. With the digital experience, we want to adapt to your lifestyle, right? If you are someone that interacts with the government and you pull up your cell phone, right, and you want to submit something, right, we want to make it available to you, right? We want to reach you where you are, right? I think we said it very well, is that, when you move to USDA, we're providing the direct services, and DOL is fortunate that I think everything we do is a direct service to you, Sometimes you may not realize DOL is behind it, that's possible. I feel like DOL has come a long way in both those aspects. The fact that we are one of the 3 agencies where we are scored A in FITARA recently, right, says a lot, honestly. When the FITARA came out, we were probably, we started C-, I think, if I remember correctly. That shows the journey that DOL covered in the last, I would say, maybe 68 years at this point, probably, since the first FITARA legislation. And I joke with Gandhip saying that no one can call him B student anymore. He's an A student at this point in time. So we all take a bit of pride in saying that. So digitization itself is a volume problem. It's a record volume problem. It's a historic paper records that you need to keep alive. So it is a solvable problem nonetheless, but I think where sometimes it takes more time than we like is having systems that can still keep them relevant and alive and searchable, while preserving all safety and security mechanisms around it, right? We have, even now digitizing papers to electronic formats. We have invested in a records management solution. We deal with temporary records differently. We have NARA guidelines on keeping records and complying with the preserving the records life cycle, which can be different based on different agencies in the Department of Labor. Some records are lifetime records. Some can be purged after X number of years. So I think to me the digitization piece of it is somewhat of a just finishing up the job, so to speak, right? Whereas the digitalization as a digital experience is the new new kind of frontier that we need to conquer a little bit better, especially with the digital experience. Talking about AI, what is different with AI that, especially in a government space, by the way, we are expecting, I think the word out there is that there would be guidelines around AI that OMB would release sooner than later, so I'm looking forward to that as well. I think what AI does is suddenly, earlier when we said, when we asked computers to say, calculate 1 plus 2, we knew that it was going to give you an answer 3. Okay? With AI, we are throwing a bunch of numbers out there in the universe, and we're saying, computer, can you tell me what 1 plus 2? Don't be surprised if it says it's 10. Right? So that's essentially the challenge with AI as emerging tech, is that there is a bit of judgment and decision making that we transferred from a human to a computer, right? When you do that, especially when you're providing very important services like unemployment insurance claims or something that is a decisional base that affects you. Somebody is out there sick and waiting for their check in the mail, and there is a form submitted to claim, and if that form has to be interpreted by a computer rather than a person, you have to worry about any unintended bias in AI, right? I think that's what makes AI a difficult endeavor, right? But also, as I said, every technology brings opportunities. I cannot think of a better technology today that has the ability to change the landscape as we know it today. And also at the same time, high reward and high risk, right? Mm-hmm. So I think what we strive for generally with AI is that we want to make sure that it is done responsibly, right? It is done from a DEIA standpoint, right? That there is not a unintended consequence of injecting this technology into our mission systems because it's going to affect the public, right? So I think the approach we're taking is very similar to what Don is doing in USDA. We do have, a directorate that focuses on emerging technology. We establish sandboxes. We experiment with use cases. We try to evaluate, even if it's a small use case, the bias that may or may not exist. We debate over it. We have lawyers sitting and debating whether this should be done. So I think we're doing all the right things with it. It still stays emerging technology. As a person that is in charge of 500 systems that probably help millions of Americans, right? So what is that comfort level where we look at a new capability that we need to build, and I go, bingo, we use AI here, and it's easy. I think there is work that needs to be done to get to that comfort level. It is more our understanding of technology and knowing the pitfalls around it and safeguards that we need to place. Like we talked about data security, which is a big piece of all of this, right? I think we'll get there. It's just that it tends to be a space at the moment that needs to be more well-defined. And I think it presents an enormous opportunity for the whole environment, actually, not just government, private sector. I think because of the potential it brings, right? I think it is prudent on all of us to invest in it and understand it better, put some guardrails around it. Of course, when OMB or someone comes out with guidelines, they're going to be tremendously helpful as well. So that's kind of what I wanted to say on that.
So I think you touch on several things here, right? Innovation, monetization. We're talking about a lot of those stuff, and we talk about emerging technology and like that is at some point become just a technology, right? 15 years ago, mobile development is emerging technology. Now it's just mobile app, right? It's just a thing, right? But I guess a lot of, actually, I am personally, right? We come from, a commercial area that we underestimate the roadblock, the impediment that go into the federal market. Like you say, they got a lot of, policy guideline, and you have to inherit to. And we run through a lot of those stuff, right? That we underestimate the effort that you're going to have to go through, because I can build a mobile app in 2 days, but how do you build that mobile app in 2 days in the federal government? Because you got to go through a lot of those stuff that you got to secure and all of that stuff, right? So what do you can share with the audience today, some of the roadblock and impediment that we may not appreciate it, right? outside looking in, right?
Whichever way we were answering.
That's a tough one.
I said no hard questions. You gave a hard question.
I didn't follow the script.
You did not follow the
I did not follow the script.
I told him no hard questions. One of the biggest things that I think everyone in this room will appreciate is the government's move to supply chain risk assessment. And we want to make sure that companies like Trongs are employing secure coding practices. And we want to make sure that we're not getting code from Russia, or we have a situation like we had with SolarWinds, that application. So that's big. So that's and that requires patience because we have to do the legwork. Companies have to do that legwork, right? That requires patience. Another piece of it, when it comes to I guess secure coding practices and data, is really every generative AI or you name it. Congress is making a law right now, probably in committee, or maybe not, but
Let's don't go further there.
But they will be in committee, talking about generative AI and how we can make sure it's secure and how the data can be trusted. So I think there's a lot of work, but my ask would be for organizations to be patient with us. Like you said, you can do something in two days, but quite frankly, it's best for the American people that we take our time and do it in 3 months, 6 months instead of 2 days, because we want to have that trust with that data. So,
Yeah, you want to add on?
Yeah, I'm going to say I'm going to say this as a government curmudgeon, totally tongue in cheek. Stop sniping our tech leaders. But in all seriousness, though, this is a great question, and actually kind of a little bit of a passion project of mine. And while I haven't figured out how to scale it, we need what I consider bureaucracy hackers, right? People who understand what impediments are going to be there, what impediments have to be there, and then how to navigate between those impediments. And I'll give you a couple of examples so it's a little bit tangible, but in terms of like, take my role as CTO. I could not imagine sitting in a government CTO role without some background in acquisition and knowing my left and right limits on what I can and can't do, what's in the realm of feasible, and the things that you just really can't, you really should not touch or navigate correctly without throwing a protest or something along those lines. So that goes back to fairness, right? The government, by statute, by really in the interest of the American public, has to be competitive, right? We have to compete out what we do. So, when we go through market research, when we go through the what seems like a bureaucratic hurdle, I offer, be patient with us. It's worth the investment, because you're going to make an impact to a very large customer. The other side of the coin is, okay, on the tech side. On the tech side, we've got, gosh, I am having no luck with these things.
It's not built by generative AI.
So on the tech side, we just don't know. We just do not have the intrinsic skill sets that understand all of the ecosystems that we could potentially bring to bear from industry. And it's imperative that we break things down in a way, or offer things in a way, and I think industry's kind of caught helping us to catch up by offering, hey, there's a lot of free training and a lot of these different resources that are out there. So the things that I always like to tell small businesses is focus, right? Pick a system. Chances are, if you're in one of the major ecosystems, if you have a skill set that can apply in those ecosystems and they can come day one hitting the ground running, that's the type of stuff that CTO, my fellow CTOs, and even our app development teams are looking for. So I'm encouraged by where we're going. And then at the same time, those leaders, we need your help adapting our leaders. I can't tell you, I'll give this little anecdote. We've got a learning platform for USDA AgLearn. My intention is not to have 10 different platforms for learning that I can point the IT workforce that the CIO is in charge of all over the place. I need them to go to one, they need to pick a path on where they want to go, and then most importantly, as a CTO, I'm very interested in those gold star, tier one, architects and engineers that come out of those things. They don't have to be IT specialists. In fact, it's best that they're not IT specialists because we want a little bit of the blend of the mission system aspect of it and how they can then apply. I'll leave it with this: is everybody needs to think about, and this goes for government, this goes for industry, this goes for academia. Everybody needs to think about when they're working on a piece of technology or you leveraging a piece of technology, help us figure out the so what. Whether it's potentiality or something that we can actually realize. And I'll tell you, that will go miles down the road when we start approaching senior leaders, senior managers, and even some of the senior engineers and junior engineers that we're bringing aboard.
Yeah. So I think it's an important question. I agree with my colleagues here. I want to give some more concrete, practical things you could do as our partners, right? When new technology comes in, there's almost this mad rush of who gets to use it first. Okay, when you're working with the government, we want you to be aware of the same equitable access that we are looking for, right? So one thing you can probably do is not just jump on the technology and sell it to government leaders, but kind of really be an honest broker there, okay? Whatever you learn with technology, teach us, right? The space is so vast, we are living in a universe of IT, right? There is no shortage of pieces you can pick up. They will come, right? But I think what we have to do as a collective group of partners is to take a look at it and say, let's do this responsibly a little bit, right? Let's learn from each other. Government needs your great ideas. We need your learning. There's no fun anymore to learn by myself, Let's say if I have 5 people who can teach me how to do something, I want to first listen to all 5. I just either choose to just use it the way you've used it and it's been effective and only innovate the pace that I need to innovate, right? The other thing I would say is that that's one thing. And second thing you can actually do, and some of our partners actually do this very effectively, is that you are providing services not just to one agency, you're providing services to multiple agencies, right? And you can connect the dots for us, Sometimes more than we can connect the dots. For example, one thing that still is a space that I think OMB is trying to address is that, first of all, as a mission system lead, I can tell you that every mission system is more in common than not, actually, right? But if you ask the mission leads, is your thing same as the next person's thing, and the flat out answer is going to be no, right? So I think something that we are doing at the department, especially in my area, what I'm trying to do is I want to build Lego pieces, right? And I want to, every time a new problem comes in, you want to assemble those Lego pieces, and Lego pieces being IT components, obviously here. Because we all want time to market, no? I mean, when we say have patience, trust me, we are just as impatient, because that time to market changes lives for someone, right? So it's a real mission and a real need. Practically, you can connect the dots for us. You can tell us when you talk about technology, not just like jump on it is the recommendation, but I hope you would say jump on it, but be careful, you may get hurt in this area, you need to be careful. So we want to be honest brokers to each other, right? I would say practically that's one thing that we can collectively do. In the interest of time, I'll save rest of the thoughts, but let's move on to the next one.
No, thank you.
Reuse. Help us reuse. Help us reuse.
Okay. No, thank you. A lot of now, as you said, creating those Lego pieces, a lot of innovative Lego pieces, Mangala especially, handling all these mission applications. Now, building these new innovation, new technologies, Lego pieces. What are the challenges you face or to operationalize those pieces in the real world? And second fold of this question, how do you create, since we both, especially are from the CIO show, then you have all these bureaus and agencies and missions, how do you create consensus to have that streamline?
I'll go first. Okay. So I live in mission world, so somebody says mission and I'm like, man, let goes on. I think it starts with building a trusted partnership with your agency. You may be building a rocket for all you care. If you don't have a trusted partnership, that rocket is not going to fly anywhere, right? So I think we strive to, especially in the approach that CIO has, I strive to create that confidence and that trust, and I think that goes a long way. That's fundamental to be able to do that. The second thing is, don't ask the question that you know the answer to, which is asking agencies, hey, OSHA has this system and your system sounds similar. Is this the same? Can I reuse this? Don't ask that question. You know the answer to that, right? Instead, what we are trying to do is there is a difference between enterprise architecture and solution architecture. Okay? There is a lot of reuse you can inject in solution architecture, right? And it is not often talked about because we tend to focus on enterprise architecture, which tends to be 100,000-foot view of guidelines about what you should do. But your solution is where rubber meets the road. So what we are doing in the department, especially in the mission systems, Anil, is that we have I see an opportunity, right? Because there is some level of adoption of agile way of developing systems, right, across the spectrum. There is some level of creating user stories or epics, if you're familiar with those words. So we're trying to unify and standardize how we develop systems. And to me, there is the opportunity. So now, what we're trying to do behind the scene is that, first of all, having all the systems that you and I were talking about this earlier is that, in certain agencies, the app dev teams are all across, right? When I took this job, one of the challenging or most interesting aspects of this job is that how many times you have a view of 27 agency mission systems under one umbrella. And I'm happy to say that that's the most interesting part of my job, right? And what we are doing in department is that whenever there is a new capability that needs to be built, we created solution teams. They take over from the EA team. EA team sets high-level targets and standards, and then the solutions pass through a group of senior architects that are solution folks, right? And then when we try to put that solution together and provide a cost estimate of what it's going to cost, what we are looking at is looking at the Lego pieces called user stories and epics, right? And if technically you can actually increase the reuse quite a bit, and so that is how practically we're trying to actually reuse more across systems. Then you can build those things as services that can be called from different places, right? If we just consistently aim to do that, I can tell you, in 3 years, if I were to just say the cost avoidance or cost savings that we have been able to realize with this approach is pretty phenomenal, actually, right? Once you accomplish that, I think there is huge opportunities kind of across agencies, looking at it as a journey and a life cycle, right? So you may come to Department of Labor for labor certification, but then you go to Department, USCIS or some other agency, and there is a next step. And we kind of looking at journey from multiple agency standpoint, like forget the agency, look at your journey, right? And your journey is going to touch different agencies, different touch points. I think that needs sometimes, I think the challenges there, Anil, is that needs sometimes a bit of a collaboration across agencies, which takes time. It's doable, it just takes time. But I feel like just with the IT, there's so much you can do to increase their use and to build components that are usable. I think the approach we are taking, I'm very optimistic about it. I've seen results already. We will continue to drive this a little bit more, and I think it's going to help us in the long run.
You have any? Yeah. So, I was not scripted again. Spawn from the net, maybe I'm not follow any of the script at all. But
John, you want to add anything?
you have anything to add on that?
I think this one works, yeah. Building consensus. I go back and forth on this one. So sometimes we got to do things for the betterment of the department, and sometimes we have the luxury of consensus building. We build consensus when we center on the commonality of the outcome, not the solution. The solution can help broker that a little bit, and that's where I think you guys come in. But I can't emphasize enough the need to help us not just ask the question, but connect the dots. The more we do that, consensus comes. Consensus comes when, oh, that agency, and that agency is using that, and then you have 4 other agencies that want to go off and do their own capability sets or their own solutioning. Now at an enterprise level, you've got a little bit of leverage in saying, okay, we've got 3, let's bring the 4th, let's bring the 5th. So, if you guys start thinking in terms of that, I think it's beneficial. It's mutually beneficial for both the government and us. The decentralized application development, again, this is one of those back and forths. I'm a new guy in USDA. What I want to emphasize is I think it's doable as long as we recognize where our artifacts end up. I want to encourage not just the point solution, the one-off, okay, this time we're gonna do an MVP that's low security, really quick, and get it out the door. I would ask to encourage your customers, hey, what's the more holistic picture here that you can look left and right for? I can't tell you how much of my time is spent when somebody comes to me, says, I've got a solution, not industry, this is internal. And then I'll turn around maybe a week or 2 later, somebody else has the same use case and a different solution. And now it's the enterprise that has to say, we're going this way versus that way. That's probably where a lot of my time is spent. I wish I could spend less on that, but
I think I wish great discussions. I wish we could continue for long, but I'm getting signs here that we have.
Music running.
Last question I would
Oscar music running. You gotta go.
No, I would still like to ask the industry here. They want to hear from you that how the industry partners can help you to meet the missions and how they can help.
I would highly, highly encourage her. If you have, for USDA, and to a certain extent, U.S. government, because we also service a lot of platforms in the U.S. government, partner with our Digital Infrastructure Center. They are an excellent entry point for USDA. And I'll keep it succinct since we only have that little bit of time, but they really are thinking of this full stack, whether it's application or infrastructure that you've been painting on all these years, and you will continue to paint on all these years. Yeah.
I want to leave you with a bit of insight, right? So, of course, this is commerce, right? So, everyone wants to get a pie of that share. My directorate, we are 95% contractors, probably. So, you all are already helping us. So, please, thank you for your service. We probably don't say this often because I think in every achievement government has, I think we have a contract that is behind and supporting us. So thank you so much for that. Second thing is, I am a big fan of reuse even from a contracting standpoint. So, for example, GVAC vehicles. somebody already has done the work for us, right? So, and then, try to leverage those vehicles. I personally tend to like them, and why create BPAs when we already have so many BPAs out there, and they allow us the opportunity to reach larger audience, right? The other thing, going back to the previous question quickly, I want to do it because recently we consolidated 90 grant-making agencies into grant solutions. It's a huge change management exercise, right? It's possible. You need the leadership support and the will, number one. Number two, something I would say government, we tend to get better at is that, using one thing requires conformance, right? So it does require you to re-engineer a little bit and say, okay, I used to do things like this, but now this tool does it this way, let's just do it this way because ultimately the job is done, right? We tend to be a little bit picky. So I think we need to think more in terms of how we compromise a little bit with the functionality that we want to build. But as far as you guys helping, I do want to leave you with saying that you are already, right? And I think we talked about a few nuggets along the way in all this discussion, how we can even further help us connect the dots and do the things that we talked about. And I would still leverage the GVAC vehicles. That's where I personally would go, looking for vehicles to use, right? And also keep the performance up, right? So there's no more assurance to a leader that is responsible for a mission system than knowing that you as a partner have succeeded in that. And nothing else can beat that, right? So that's my hopefully quick way of saying that.
And so I got 1 minute, and I'll make it really quick. And one of the biggest things for me is partner with the technology companies and bring them, have similar forums like this. I find it's always great to go to one place to see the different technologies and have get an understanding of those capabilities instead of each one trying to go, this person's calling, this company's calling, this. I really think it's a good opportunity. Me and Trong, I've known Trong for many years now. I trust Trong, and that's what it's about. We have a partnership, and we're in it for the same reason, to help the American people. So think of it like that. I think my minute is up.
Like 15 seconds.
Thank you.
Except for golf. I think we pass it back to the.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Don Mangla. Really appreciate all that.
Thank you all so much. Lots to think about, and that brings us to the end of our day. I can't believe it. Thank you all so much for coming. 14th Annual AACC Business Summit in the books. Let's try to keep these connections and networking events going, and let's take all the knowledge that we learned today, take that forward with us. We'd like to thank our attendees, our board members, our speakers, everybody, all of our volunteers, and our sponsors, of course. If you have any questions, you can ask any board member or contact us on our website, and we hope to see you at our marquee event, our Jewels of Asia Chamber Awards Gala. That's May 2nd at the Crystal View in Fairfax. So drive safely, everyone, and have a great weekend.